Raging Bull is widely regarded as one of the greatest films ever made, directed by Martin Scorsese and starring Robert De Niro as middleweight boxer Jake LaMotta, whose troubles outside the ring bring him as much fame as his wars inside the ring. The script was adapted by Paul Schrader and is based on Jake LaMotta's 1970 memoir, Raging Bull, My Story. In this video, I will take a closer look at the themes and symbolism in the movie. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to leave a comment. Jake's marriage is falling apart because his wife suspects him of infidelity. The explosive rage that makes him a great boxer is on display here as he and his wife get into a fight over a steak. Right off the bat, we get to see two sides of Jake's personality: rage and lack of discipline. This scene also introduces Jake's little brother Joey, played by Joe Pesci, and Frank Vincent, who plays the role of Salvi Batts, a member of the Mafia. Joey introduces Jake, who is still married to a 15-year-old girl named Vicky. Jake saw her in a nightclub with a member of the Mafia and became obsessed with her. Joey knew her and introduces them in this scene, which takes place at a public swimming pool. The black and white clothes Jake wears in this scene represents the conflict he has within himself, in contrast to Vicky, who wears all white. Also, the chain-link fence enclosing the public pool, and that also separates Jake and Vicky, is in the pattern of crosses going along with the religious iconography throughout the film. Joey convinces Jake to throw an upcoming fight with a weaker opponent named Gennaro. Later, at a nightclub, Jake and his friends are having drinks, and Jake is boasting about his upcoming bout with Gennaro when Vicky throws in her 2 cents, saying that she thinks that Gennaro is good looking. Jake is consumed with jealousy, and he is even more determined to destroy Gennaro. Once again, we have Jake and Sugar Ray in the third of their 4 fights. This is an interesting scene because at this point in the film, Jake is battling on several fronts in his life and career. He knows that he has to win every fight to even have the smallest chance of fighting for the title, which the Mafia controls, and his storybook marriage to Vicky seems to be falling apart. This fight is symbolic in that it shows Jake's state of mind. The smoke, the groaning effects, the shimmering images as if through heat waves all add to the surreal point of view Jake has at this point of his career in life. Also, this match is a metaphor of Jake's entire life in that he's being led on blind instinct, as illustrated when Jake sits on the stool in his corner and the rope covers his eyes. His life, like this match, seems to be occurring in a nightmare that is further reinforced by the camera techniques used in this match. The camera whirls around to show Jake's perspective as though the world is a merry-go-round. Shortly after winning the title, he questions his brother Joey about Vicky. Word got back around to Jake about the fight Joey had with Salvi the day Joey caught Vicky in the nightclub with Salvi. Joey won't tell Jake about the incident. Jake doesn't trust anybody, not even his own brother. This scene illustrates how Jake's sense of reality has been distorted by jealousy. After brutally beating his little brother in front of the man's wife and children, Jake faces his arch nemesis, Sugar Ray Robinson, for the 4th time alone. He suffers a savage and bloody beating that results in him losing the title he worked so hard to win. This scene represents the fall of Jake as a boxer. It's all downhill from this point. In this fight, Sugar Ray is the sum of all Jake's sins. The rope holding Jake up is a cross on which he is crucified and bloodied under Sugar's barrage of punches. Reinforcing this symbolic ritual of crucifixion are Jake's cornermen working on him as if they are preparing him for an execution. The cornerman applying the Vaseline to Jake's face does so as though he's making the sign of the cross. On the documentary, the sound editor said that he went for unusual sound effects for all of the fights, but for this one particularly. When Jake is on the ropes waiting for his punishment, the crowd noises die out and a lion's roar is cued to match Sugar launching himself at Jake. Also, the sound of winds howling replaced the roar of the spectators at ringside. Visually, cinematographer Michael Chapman surrounded the ring with thick smoke to make it look like hell and used the lights to transform Sugar Ray into a godlike silhouette. Jake retires, but without boxing as a way to maintain his weight and also as a way to regulate his moral excesses. His life spins out of control and he is charged with serving alcohol to a 14-year-old girl in his nightclub. He goes to prison where he confronts the demons inside of himself and comes out of prison broke but spiritually reborn. He makes up with his brother Joey. This is the darkest and most powerful sequence in the entire film as we see Jake succumb to all of his excesses without the discipline and balance of boxing, his little brother or his wife. As the film started with him in the boxing ring alone, in this scene he is also alone with himself to confront the question why. His unlit cell represents not only his isolation as a human being with his own distinct emotions and appetites, but also the darkness of his inability to see that out of all the men he faced in the ring, that he has always been his own worst enemy. Also, another note about his weight gain. Prior to his retirement, the training he underwent for his fights kept his weight from getting out of control. I interpret his weight gain as the total lack of discipline. Besides helping to keep his weight under control, the discipline of training and boxing and the beatings he took in the ring was a way of him repenting for his sins outside the ring. Jake the boxer is like those in the Old Testament of the Bible who offer animal sacrifices to God for their sins. After going to jail and dying in a figurative sense, Jake comes out of this type of death as a man reborn. He realizes now that he can no longer sacrifice his body and flesh for atonement, and that now he must seek forgiveness from those he has hurt. His eyes are open and he can see that his true enemy is and has always been himself. Isaiah 1 verses 11 through 16. I do not delight in the blood of bulls. In the scene in the parking lot, Jake cries and begs Joey's forgiveness. This is a very powerful scene and marks the final stage in Jake's character arc, going from a man living on pure appetite and instinct to a broken man in touch with his humanity, from a man used to paying for sinning with his blood to a man who now pays with tears and asks for forgiveness. Also, in the background in this scene, there is a cross which serves as a sign of forgiveness. Jack is full circle from where he began in the first scene, where he's in the dressing room rehearsing his lines. In that scene, he is not looking at himself in the mirror, but in this scene, he is looking at himself in the mirror, reading the famous lines from On the Waterfront, where Brando and his brother are in the back seat of the taxi. Here are Brando's lines from that film. "Remember that night in the garden, you came down to my dressing room and you said, 'Kid, this ain't your night. We're going for the price on Wilson.' You remember that. This ain't your night, my night. I could have taken Wilson apart. So what happens? He gets the title shot outdoors on the ballpark, and what do I get? A one-way ticket to Palookaville. You was my brother, Charlie. You should have looked out for me a little bit. You should have taken care of me just a little bit so I wouldn't have to take them dives for the short end money. You don't understand. I could have had class. I could have been a contender. I could have been somebody instead of a bum, which is what I am. Let's face it was you, Charlie." After reciting these lines, Jake, dressed in a tuxedo, shadow boxes and leaves the dressing room. He has accepted responsibility for the mistakes he has made in his life. This is a fantastic film, one of the greatest films and one of my favorite Scorsese film, Raging Bull. I appreciate you watching this video and taking out of your time. Again, thank you, and I appreciate it, and I will see you next time.